Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Litchfield Town Deliberative Session. My name is Frank Byron. I'll be serving today as your moderator pro tem, presiding over this morning's meeting. I live at 8 Mallard Court with my wife Patricia and my son Michael, and I'd like to welcome you all here today. I would ask if you could all rise, and Chief Freitzel, if you could come forward, please, and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Chief. Before we commence our meeting today and consider the warrant articles that have been submitted to us, there's several housekeeping items that we need to discuss. One, state laws prohibit smoking anywhere in the school grounds, so please do not light up. Restrooms are located just past the auditorium on the right-hand side of the hallway. Emergency escape exits are located at the back of the stage and to both sides, as well as the doors that you came in through. Unfortunately, food and drink is not allowed in the auditorium. Special consideration has been granted to those who are up on the stage here and must discuss the warrant articles. I would ask everybody, if you have a cell phone, please hold it up, turn it towards you, and put it on silent mode or turn it off, please, so that you not disturb those who are here for this meeting. Only those authorized to vote today may sit in the center as well as this left section of the auditorium. Anybody who is here today to observe, please sit in the far section to your right. We will have, between Articles 8 and 9 today, a 10-minute break so that you can take care of business. I'd like to introduce the officials today that you're going to be hearing from, presenting the deliberative information and addressing your questions. I ask that each chair of the board present the members who are in attendance. First up, Ms. Carrie Douglas, Chairwoman, Litchfield Budget Committee.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody here as well as our Budget Committee. I have the Vice Chair, Andrew Cutter, Member Nicole Forte, William Hayes, Brian Hodgkins, we have Jessica Martin, Jen Burke, the Selectmen's Rep, Rob Leary. You'll introduce from here later. Rob Leary is our rep from the Board of Selectmen, and our school board rep is Rob Myers.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. I now call on Mr. Stephen Weber, Chairman of the Litchfield Board of Selectmen, to introduce the Select Board.
Good morning and welcome. Representing the town today, we have our tax collector town clerk, Terry Briand. We have legal counsel, Laura Spector-Morgan. We have vice chair, Mr. Kurt Schaefer. We have selectman Brent Lemire. We have selectman Bob Leary. And we have selectman Kevin Lynch. And also our town administrator, Troy Brown.
Thank you, Chairman Weber. I've also today taken and used my discretion to appoint two people who will take care of counting up if we have to do a standing count or to collect secret ballots. Those two individuals are Brian Bork as well as Leo Briand. Thank you for volunteering. I very much appreciate it. Let's go over the rules and procedures of this meeting. Litchfield is operating under what is known as Senate Bill 2 procedures. This means that our function this morning is to review, discuss, and amend, if necessary, the warrant articles that have been presented by the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee for our vote on official ballot election day. Election day will be held on March 10th, 2020 from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Campbell High School Gymnasium. I will also add as an aside, New Hampshire primary to elect the candidates for the parties will also be held on February 11th, 2020 here at the Campbell High School Gymnasium and will run from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. as well. If we make no amendments to these warrant articles, then they will appear on the ballot as you see them today. If we do make amendments to these warrant articles, then they will appear on the ballot as you've amended them. For this deliberative session, the moderator will read each warrant article and recognize a sponsor to speak to it. The moderator will then open the floor for discussions, questions, and amendments. If a voter wants to propose an amendment to an article, he or she must present the moderator with a written draft amendment signed by the voter, as well as including their street address. The moderator will then review the amendment for completeness and adherence to state law. The moderator will read the proposed amendment so that all voters may understand, and then will seek a second to the amended motion. Once the amendment is moved and seconded, the moderator will recognize the sponsoring voter to present his or her motion. It is contrary to the rules to discuss a motion before it is properly moved and seconded. Amendments to warrant articles must be given to the moderator in writing. Index cards are available here at the front for your use in drafting and submitting amendments. Note that by state law, an amendment cannot change the primary subject matter described in the warrant. No negative motions will be in order. A negative motion would be something such that a no vote would represent a vote in favor of a warrant. We may not have more than one amendment on the floor for consideration at any one time. So please, no amendments to propose amendments. We need to consider each proposed amendment separately. Following your vote on each amendment, further amendments will be considered as they come in order. Every effort will be made to give recognition to all wishing to speak. If you want to speak, then you must come up to the microphones to do so. We have 2 microphones here with us today, here in front of the moderator's desk, as well as one over on the far side. Either of those 2 microphones you can use to make your comments. Board members, if you are speaking as a board member discussing an article, you may remain on the stage. If you are offering your own opinion as a citizen, then I ask that you move to one of the floor microphones. When you're speaking or making a motion, please clearly state your name and street address. This information aids the moderator as well as the clerk, who must take and make minutes of our deliberations. Any motion to end debate must be made immediately when a voter arrives at the microphone. The moderator will then seek a second to the motion, and then will put the question to the voters assembled today. If the motion to end debate is successful by gaining a simple majority, then the moderator will immediately call for a vote on the question currently under consideration. All those who speak are to keep their remarks pertinent to the motion and must speak no longer than 3 minutes. No personal attacks will be permitted, no profanity will be permitted, and all speakers will direct their comments and remarks to the moderator. In case of questions, the moderator will call upon the appropriate person to respond. We will allow up to 1 follow-up question. However, we will not allow running discussions. This is in the interest of time and fairness to others who may wish to speak on an issue. Please try to avoid redundancy. The deliberative session is a forum at which to ask questions and to gain an understanding of the warrant. More importantly, it is a place for debate. Proper respect and decorum is expected at all times. According to state law, town and school district meetings are run by what are called moderator's rules. This means that the moderator sets the ground rules for the meeting, as I am doing right now. However, law also allows you to overrule the moderator's ruling by a simple majority vote. To overrule the moderator's ruling, a voter may request a point of order at any time. The moderator will then recognize the voter, who may, if desired, explain his or her point of order, requesting that the moderator's ruling be overruled. The moderator will then poll the voters, and if a majority agree with the voter, then the moderator's ruling will be voided. A motion to adjourn will not be accepted until all warrant articles have been discussed. A motion to table an article will not be in order unless it is to table until a specific time and place in the meeting's agenda before the close of this meeting. A motion to reconsider an article after discussion is closed will not be in order unless seconded and approved by a simple majority vote. Reconsidered articles must be discussed and closure reached before the end of this meeting. A motion to restrict reconsideration of a warrant will not be in order unless seconded and approved by a simple majority vote, and only when there are no warrant articles under consideration. What I mean by that is between warrant articles. Only those people who are on the checklist as qualified voters are permitted to vote at any time. If the moderator receives a complaint or notices a non-voter voting, then I will require that the non-voter to leave the auditorium. In the Campbell High School auditorium, voters are asked to sit in the middle section and in the section directly in front of the moderator. Non-voters may sit to your far right as you enter the auditorium. As you came into the meeting today, the ballot clerks gave each registered voter a sheet of yes/no ballots. These are for your use during a secret ballot. Please do not drop them on the floor or leave them behind if you leave before the close of the meeting. Please turn them over to the moderator or to the ballot clerks before leaving. The moderator must conduct a secret yes/no ballot when 5 or more voters make a written request prior to a voice, hand, standing, or division vote on an article. Secret ballot requests must be submitted to the moderator. The moderator must conduct a secret yes/no ballot when 7 or more voters challenge any non-ballot vote immediately after the vote is declared by the moderator and before any other business is conducted. This challenge may be made verbally or in writing. Remember, under our Senate Bill 2 town government system, you have a secret ballot on the warrant article on Election Day. Approval of all warrant article amendments at the deliberative session shall be by a simple majority. A voice vote will be the primary method of voting. If the moderator cannot distinguish a clear majority with a voice vote, then a vote by standing or raising of hands will be taken. Over the course of the meeting, there may be many opportunities for the use of acronyms. We ask, however, that board and committee members who discuss an article refrain from using acronyms. It's unfair to assume that everybody knows what acronyms mean. For example, throughout the morning, you may hear references to the acronym RSA. The term refers to Revised Statutes Annotated, or simply our state laws. About halfway through our meeting, during the break, the moderator will open the floor to anyone interested in discussing materials other than what is presented on the list of articles before you. This is a prime time to offer thanks for a job well done or to provide general comments to the boards represented. The moderator will govern the time allocated for this. It is your prerogative to permit non-voters to speak at this meeting. It has been customary to allow employees, council, and non-registered residents to speak at these meetings. If it is your wish to continue to do so, please signify by saying aye. Aye. If you are opposed to this, please say no. The motion passes. The ayes have it. Now we can continue on to the business of the meeting. Article 1, election of officers. 3-year budget committee. 3 budget committee members will be elected for a 3-year term. 1 cemetery trustee to a 3-year term. 1 checklist supervisor to a 6-year term. 2 library trustees to a 3-year term. 2 selectmen to a 3-year term. 1 town clerk and tax collector to a 3-year term. 1 town moderator to a 1-year term. 1 trustee of trust funds to a 3-year term. Are there any questions on Article 1? Hearing none, it will appear as read on your ballots come March 10th. Article 2, dimensional requirements. Are you in favor of the adoption of Amendment Number 1 as proposed by the Planning Board for the Town of Litchfield zoning ordinance as follows? Amendment Section 310, Dimensional Requirements, Note 4, to change the square footage from a shed needing to meet the minimum 10-foot side and rear setback from 192 square feet to 200 square feet. This is recommended by the Planning Board. I call on Mr. Michael R. Croteau, Esquire, Chairman of the Litchfield Planning Board, to present this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Croteau. I live at 6 Garden Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. I am the chair of the Litchfield Planning Board. This article is in favor of adoption of Amendment Number 1 to Section 310 of the Dimensional Requirements. This would basically, this is a minor amendment to bring sort of the dimensional requirements for small sheds on residential properties in line with standard shed sizes. This would basically do just that, and that's it. Any questions?
Are there any questions from the audience in terms of this warrant article? Hearing none, then, it'll appear on the ballot as written on March 10th. Article 3, Planning Board Conditional Use. Are you in favor of the adoption of Amendment 2 as proposed by the Planning Board for the Town of Litchfield zoning ordinance as follows? Amend Section 603, Special Exceptions, Highway Commercial, 703, Special Exceptions, Southwest Commercial District, 803, Special Exceptions, Northern Commercial District, 953A through C, Special Exceptions, Northern Commercial Industrial Service District, and 1003 A through C, Special Exceptions, Southern Commercial Industrial Service District, to permit gasoline sales, automobile service and repair, and fast food restaurants with a takeout and or drive-through service by conditional use permit granted by the Planning Board rather than a special exception under the Zoning Board of Adjustment. This is recommended by the Planning Board, and I now recognize Mr. Croteau, Chairman of the Litchfield Planning Board, to present this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So this amendment was designed essentially to streamline the zoning ordinance by eliminating a provision that would unnecessarily require applicants who come before our board to obtain approval from 2 different boards. Currently, applicants seeking to develop gas stations, auto repair facilities, fast food restaurants, and commercial zones must obtain a special exception from the Zoning Board of Adjustment, even though the condition for granting the special exception are entirely objective. Then the applicant would have to come before the Planning Board for approval. So since the zoning ordinance does not provide the Zoning Board of Adjustment with any discretion in determining that the applicant meets the conditions, the ZBA review really is an unnecessary step in that process. So with this amendment, what the Planning Board is designed to do would determine whether the applicant meets the condition for these auto-related uses, while also reviewing the proposed plan for consistency with the town's non-residential site plan review requirements. There are no changes to the existing requirements as proposed, so basically this proposed amendment has been recommended by the ZBA, or the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Are there any questions from the voters on this article? Ma'am, please come down if you have a question.
I have to watch the desk for a minute. I'm Patricia Garrett. I live on Talent Road, registered voter. And I just wondered, what is the address of these locations? Is that right on Charles Baycroft Highway?
The question was, what is the address of the locations that are mentioned in this article? Chairman Croteau?
Yeah, this only has to do with the non-residential zones. It would be in the commercial zones of Litchfield. So,
Are there any further questions?
Are they more than just off Charles Bancroft Highway?
There are 102 is another section of town that has commercial industrial, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on this warrant article? Hearing none, then you will see it appear as it's drafted on the ballots come March 10th. Article 4, electronic signs. Are you in favor of the adoption of amendment number 3 as proposed by the Planning Board for the Town of Litchfield zoning ordinance as follows? Amend section 1500, signs, to provide specific requirements for electronic signs. This is recommended by the Planning Board, and I call on Mr. Michael Croto, Chairman of the Litchfield Planning Board, to present the article.
So this article involves the use of electronic messaging signs. It's become increasingly common for commercial uses such as churches and other religious organizations, social and civic organizations, and municipal and public safety. However, the electronic messaging signs are not currently allowed in Litchfield, except the town, which is exempt from zoning. The proposed amendment strikes sort of a balance between the proposed Litchfield's rural residential character while allowing limited use of electronic messaging on signs. So with this article, there would be these electronic signs, there would be no colored or flashing lights or animation would be allowed. Electronic messaging would be limited to 3 lines. It can't exceed 50% of the area of the sign. And the electronic sign would be equipped with a dimming technology to automatically adjust brightness levels to protect against glare.
Are there any questions, questions or comments on this warrant article? Hearing none, then you will see it as appear on the ballot come March.
Thank you.
Article 5, the 2020 operating budget. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session for the purpose set forth therein, totaling $7,064,927. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $7,035,661, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Litchfield or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman 10, and Roman 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Estimated 2020 tax impact is 3 cents. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. Recommended by the Budget Committee 810. I now call on Ms. Carrie Douglas, Chairwoman of the Litchfield Budget Committee, to present this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And again, thank you everybody here who's come to find out more about this operating budget. So we introduced our members earlier, so I could do it again, but we have myself, Carrie Douglas as chair, Andrew Cutter as vice chair, Jen Burke, Nikki Fordy, William Hayes, Brian Hodgkins, Jess Martin, Bob Leary as the selectman's rep, and Rob Myers as the school board's rep. So thank you all for your time and effort in putting into this budget. So the budget preparation, how did we get there? The town administrator, the department heads, and the selectmen's reps presented the town's proposed budget in October. The budget committee reviewed this information that was presented. We asked a lot of questions, and we approved and or adjusted proposed budget lines. And although the initial review was originally scheduled to be completed during one meeting, a second meeting was scheduled to allow for additional time. The town presented its warrant articles in December for review. The tax cap calculations were considered by the budget committee when reviewing the proposed budget and warrant articles, because as you recall, or maybe you don't, several years ago we did pass a tax cap, so that is a consideration that this budget committee needs to consider when presenting its operating budget and recommendations for warrant articles. The budget review was completed on January 2nd, 2020, when the Budget Committee voted its recommendation for the warrant articles and the operating budget. So what do we look at? We considered the rationale for the proposed spending. Why do we need it? We considered the history of actual spending of the 3 previous years. We considered what is a reasonable budget to present to the voters, given that we experienced fixed cost increases and what the revenue was projected to be in the coming year. And then we had to consider whether or not our recommendations complied with the tax cap under which we operate. So the town budget review. The current approved 2019 budget that just completed was $6,757,953, and that includes the operating budget and warrant articles. The proposed 2020 budget that has already started but not yet been approved is $7,187,328, and that represents an increase of just under $430,000. After the Budget Committee completed the review, asked their questions, analyzed the expenses, and got feedback from the department heads, the Budget Committee made reductions of $122,401. And so now the proposed operating budget is the $7,064,927. Now, this proposal is a little over $29,000 above the current default budget, and it is $306,974 above the 2019 budget. The proposed budget is an estimated increase of 3 cents on the tax rate. So what were we looking at? So we looked at each department. So we started with, these are the areas of major impact that we saw. The town meeting account. It reflects that there are additional costs associated with the presidential election cycle. We'll have the opportunity to vote more often this coming year, and unfortunately, that costs us money. Information technology. There are increased costs, contract costs, and there were proposed building upgrades into the internal infrastructure. So that represented a $39,000 increase. Police administration. And the one thing I wanted to highlight is that in the past year or so, we authorized the additional of another police officer to the department. And as a result of that addition, we're starting to experience a reduction in overtime, which is great. Thanks, guys. We also see, and one of these things that impacts throughout the budget is there is a 53rd pay period. It's just the way the calendar falls, so that has had a significant impact to this budget. So it definitely, we'll see it here. There are salary increases associated with a previously approved contract. We've hired a police officer. There was the anticipated completion of degrees, educational degrees by officers, and it begins a 3-year effort to replace portable communication radios. So that's what impacted their budget. The fire department saw a $15,000 increase in their proposal. Again, the 53rd pay period had an impact here, as well as the annual maintenance and inspections of new equipment at the new fire station. It's equipment that we did not have at the old fire station, and now we need to actually maintain it at the new one. The fire hydrants was estimated to see an almost $19,000 decrease. The cause for that is that everybody, I'm sure, is aware of those little surcharges on your Pennachuck bill. Some of those will be phasing out in the next year, and so we will be, the ones that are phasing out will result in this decrease. Road maintenance. The proposed increase associated with this department, $170,000 proposed increase. It created a new position for the highway department. Again, the 53rd pay period. There was a new contract for snow removal at the town hall, police station, and fire station parking lots. Previously, I believe we did that in-house, and now to make it easier for them to address the roads, they plan to contract that work out. Additional highway block grant road improvements, which is offset. It's additional money that we received. We plan to spend it, so we have to show it in the budget, but is also offset by additional revenue on the revenue side. But you will see it on the spending side because we're going to spend it. Sanitation administration, there is a proposed increase of $21,470. Again, the 53rd pay period. and there was an increase in both the cost and the quantity of solid waste disposal. So after we looked through all this information, we spoke to our department heads. We really dug deep into the numbers. We considered the historical spends. We made a list of recommendations and reductions. So these are the departments we reduced by less than $500. The Board of Selectmen, Town Meeting, Accounting, Tax Collection, Sanitation, Administration, and Mosquito District. All of these items were related to aligning the proposed cost and the proposed budget with historical spends. Let's see. So departments that were reduced by less than $5,000. Personnel administration, and that's associated with a reduction elsewhere. The planning board, $2,900. General government buildings, $2,800. Police support, $2,961. And Conservation Commission, $2,000. So personnel administration, as I said, is tied to a removal of a position that will be described elsewhere. The planning board had to do with, and my notes aren't on here. It had to do with how much we've spent on the planning board in the past. I understand that there's a new capital improvement plan being drafted, but this, again, historical trends of what we have actually spent. And there was another item in there as well. General government buildings had to do with reduction in fuel and heating costs, just again aligning with traditional historical spends and quantities. Police support, I had notes. Had to do with, yes, dispatch costs and historical spends. And the Conservation Commission, this is one that we removed as a committee because it's not to say that it's not needed or not warranted. They had requested additional funds for supplies and equipment, and several years ago there was a warrant article that authorized the use of their conservation fund for those types of expenses. So the belief of the budget committee was that those expenses could be funded elsewhere without coming into the actual general budget. So those are those reductions. Under $10,000, the police administration, the fire department, road agent, and vendor payments. So police administration was tied to the fact that one of our officers received their degree early, and so their bonus, their reward, their awesome recognition for that job well done occurred this year, and so it was removed from next year's budget, or 2019, because this is the 2020 budget. So it was no longer needed to be funded here. The fire department had to do with, yes, we removed the dress uniforms. Again, a worthwhile program, very long-term, and this would be a small step that was proposed, and so just the duration and other methods of funding that program were suggested to be considered. There was tying into historical spends, and I believe there was some had to do with equipment maintenance, was to align the actuals to what they were proposing. Vendor payments in particular is one that we often see overfunded in the budget. This is a fund that is utilized to help fellow neighbors and residents in need. The concern here that the Budget Committee had is we traditionally fund this very well, and then we don't, and for good reasons, we don't see a very large use necessarily in some years. So what happens with the unspent funds is it gets returned to the general fund. And then next year we come back and ask for this account to be fully funded. So every year we fully fund it, and every year we don't fully expend it. So rather than continue to overfund it on an annual basis, the Budget Committee asked the selectmen to consider the creation of an expendable trust fund. And in this way, we would fund it once, draw down on it as needed, and then replenish it when it becomes necessary to do so. So rather than overtaxing every year, we tax as needed. And I do want to thank the Board of Selectmen for hearing the concerns and the suggestions by the Budget Committee, because their response was the creation of a warrant article that does just that. So later on, you will hear them describe a warrant article that creates an expendable trust for the purpose of providing for general welfare. Article 10. But in doing so, we removed it from the budget. in the hopes and the expectation that our wonderful voters will see the need for Article 10 and support that. But this way, we do not double fund it. Departments reduced by more than $10,000, information technology, legal expenses, and road maintenance. Information technology, as we discussed, as I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of proposals for improving the infrastructure within the buildings, and there was the belief of the Budget Committee that many of those could be rolled into the capital investment infrastructure plan that is currently being developed. So see what the big picture is and then start attacking them there. Legal expenses, a lot of these are associated with the unknowns of the PFOA's situation that we are experiencing in town. As we understand, we don't know. There's also costs associated with, oh, I know what the other one was, with the stormwater treatment. So what are those costs? But we've been experiencing those situations for the past several years. And so we aligned the legal expenses with the actual expenses that we've seen over the years during which we've been experiencing PFOAs and stormwater maintenance permitting. The road maintenance, this one was the additional highway employee. Last year, we had a warrant article that encouraged or showed support for the department in through one of their studies that indicated they needed more employees. So last year, within the budget, we hired an employee. This year's budget included a second additional employee. And the belief of the Budget Committee was that while much needed and well intended, we wanted to see that position supported more transparently as a warrant article. So in working with the Board of Selectmen and our wonderful highway agent, we agreed to remove that cost from this budget, and you will see that as, I believe, warrant article number 6. That's right, we're on 5. So those costs were removed. So we do operate under a tax cap, so we need to consider how do our decisions and the items we recommend comply with this tax cap recommendation. So the articles, we had to figure out which of our articles do affect the warrant article, the tax cap, and which ones do not. So in discussions with the Board of Selectmen and legal counsel, the articles that do affect the tax cap are Article 5, the operating budget that we're discussing now, Article 6, the full-time highway employee, Article 8, the library earned time accrual expendable trust fund, Article 9, human services and health agencies, and Article 10, general assistance expendable trust fund. So we added the cost of all of these together if they're recommended, and the total came to $7,130,891. But in doing so, we also need to consider which ones do not affect the tax cap. And I'm sure we'll hear some discussion about some of these later, but those include Article 7, the public safety communication system. That is a $700,000 item over the next 5 years, including interest. Does not affect the tax cap in the way it's currently funded. Article 11, Old Town Hall paint, $25,000, because that's proposed to come out of fund balance, does not affect the tax cap. Plow truck purchase, also proposed to be used from the fund balance, does not affect the tax cap. Same can be said for Articles 13 and 14. While sizable and necessary because of their funding source, they do not affect the tax cap. The elderly exemption proposal, and these are best estimates based on those currently utilizing those. These would be the proposed tax impacts, but yet they do not affect the tax cap. But we do need to consider them. So using the items that we have identified to that influence the tax cap, we found that our gross appropriation of the $7,130,891, after factoring in projected revenue and the credits, we found that our proposals came in under the tax cap. We were below the tax cap by almost $35,000 once all was said and done and adjustments were made. So that said, we felt comfortable continuing with our recommendations. So the current tax rate for this year on the town side only is $4.80. The recommended operating budget would be a 3-cent increase. So for a house valued at $350,000, $10.50 increase for this 2020 budget. The increase due to the recommended warrant articles, and there are a couple that may change, and the recommendations may change after that, but currently recommended would be 14 cents. So that would bring a total new rate to $4.97. So when you combine all that together, the 17-cent increase in total would result in a $59.50 increase on the tax side, on the town side of the tax. Are there any questions or comments relative to the proposed operating budget?
Do the voters have any questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article? I'd remind people to please state your name and address before
And
speaking.
Speak clearly.
Ralph Bohm, 6 Gibson Drive, also a state rep. My question is mainly to the selectmen because the budget committee is involved with this. But, you know, I'm always been a stickler on the default budget. So correct me if I'm wrong. On the town's default budget, on the police side, and I believe we're running the cycle of 2 police cruisers and then 1 police cruiser, you know, every other year.
Mm-hmm.
So this year, I believe we're doing 1 police cruiser, but there are 2 police cruisers in the default budget. Shouldn't that be fixed?
I'd ask Selectman Weber if you have yourself or somebody else who wishes to address this from the Select Board.
So legal counsel just informed us if we have 2 cruises in last year's budget, we have to keep 2 cruises in this year's budget, even if the intent is only to purchase 1.
Are there any further questions, comments, or amendments on this warrant article? Going once, going twice.
Well, thank you very much.
Sold. This warrant article will appear as written on the March ballot. Article 6, full-time highway employee. To see if the town will vote to hire a full-time highway employee effective July 1, 2020, at an estimated annual salary and related costs of $71,928, and further vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,964 for wages and benefits for the period of July 1, 2020 to December 31, 2020. Estimated 2020 tax rate impact is 4 cents. Wages and benefits. Wages for 2020 would be $18,720. For 2021 would be $37,440. Health, assuming a family plan for 2020 would be $13,340. For 2021, $26,680. Dental, assuming a family plan, would be $792 for 2020, $1,584 for 2021. New Hampshire Retirement System, NHRS, would be $2,090 for 2020, or $4,180 for 2021. SSI, Supplemental Social Security, whatever it is $828 for 2020 and $1,656 for 2021. Medicare, $194 for 2020, $388 for 2021. All of that totaled up equals $35,964 for 2020, $71,928 for 2021. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen. It's also recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 7-0. I now call on Selectman Kurt Schaefer, Vice Chairman of the Litchfield Board of Selectmen, to present this article.
Good morning, I'm Kurt Schaefer. I live at 27 Pilgrim Drive. The current staff is 2 full-time employees and 1 seasonal part-time employee. The 2018 MRI study, which is the Municipal Resources study, recommended 3 full-time employees. As a side note, we also had a warrant article last year where they recommended 2 full-time employees. It was just a recommendation. It was a petition warrant article. The primary purpose of the new position is safety. The position eventually will require a CDL, and it's difficult to hire an employee with a CDL. We're also in negotiations and talks of trying to cross-train our solid waste and highway personnel for department coverage, sickness, and vacations. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article?
Tim McFadden, 31 Woodhawk Way. Is this in addition to the position of road agent, or do we still have a position of road agent, or is that in this equation, or is that a minefield we don't want to go?
No, this will be another employee that's going to be overseen by the road agent.
Say we will be having, so be having a total of 4 full-time and a part-time, is that correct?
Nope, we will have a total of 3 full-time, and one of the full-timers is acting road agent and a part-time, so we'll have a total of 4 people on the payroll, including the part-timer during the summer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions, comments, or amendments on this warrant article? Hearing none, then, this warrant article will appear as drafted and is submitted on the March 10th ballot.
Thank you.
Warrant Article 7, Public Safety Communications System Lease Purchase. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a 5-year lease purchase agreement for the sum of $700,000 to replace and expand the public safety radio communication system. The first payment is not required until 2021. The lease agreement contains an escape clause. Estimated 2020 tax impact rate is $0. Note the payments in arrears are, for 2020, 0 and 0 for the tax impact. For 2021, a payment of $151,411 and a 16-cent tax rate impact. That is also the same impact for 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. And that brings up a total cost of $757,055. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0. It's also recommended by the Budget Committee 7-2-0. I now call on Mr. John Brunel, Litchfield IT Manager, to present this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history, a little bit of knowledge of what we're trying to replace. So we currently have...
Can everybody hear him? If you could turn up the microphone, or John, if you move it a little closer.
Yeah, I'll move it a little closer. How's this? Sorry about that. So we have communications within town that's used by our public safety, both the police department and fire department, and we also have our DPW that leverages communications. In these departments, communications is really critical. When officers are called to a scene, they're dispatched, they communicate with responding officers through that mechanism. Same with the fire department. In the case of DPW, that's how they coordinate their programs that are going on and responding to emergencies. The problem we have today is we have three very different systems. And these 3 different systems are all of the age of around 22 plus years. The manufacturer that we have, which is Motorola, no longer makes parts for those systems. So when they fail, we may not be able to repair them. We also have coverage issues. So in town, we have areas in town where officers can't hear dispatch, or they can't hear responding units. Same thing with the fire department. We also have a severe coverage problem when it comes to the schools. When officers are in the schools, they cannot communicate outside of the schools. It's a dead area. Same thing with our fire department. The example that was showed to me during the discussions was a firefighter could be sitting on one side of the school, see the other person outside where they can't communicate. So communications is really critical. So about 4 years ago, we kind of stepped in and said, we got to figure this out. At that time, all the departments were trying to do something separate. We talked about merging the requirements together to come up with one system to cover all these departments and to provide improved services. So working with the police and fire and DPW, we've come up with a system that is a single controlled system that will provide services to all those departments, basically fill in those areas of concerns, like I said, communications problems in the town. It'll solve the communications coverage issues in school. It'll also address the DPW issue where they lack communications in general. We basically went and did a site survey coverage program, and we basically walked around town and took measurements to determine what the best location of these sites are. We also wanted a system that's going to give us 20 years. So we're not buying the system today and it's going to get replaced in 5 to 10 years. We want a system that's going to last 20 years like our previous system did. So the plan is to construct a 4-site system. Today we have a 3-site system. The primary location, if anyone's aware, the highest point in town is on Colonial Drive. That's where the water tower is that got put up many years ago. That will become the primary site for the system. The other remaining sites will be where they are today. Morgan Road, which is where the Verizon or the 9-hole golf course is. That's one of our sites today. Second site is Campbell High School, which is currently sitting here today. And then an additional new site is at Old Town Hall. The reason for the additional site and these current sites, because they are good locations for this purpose. The Old Town Hall is being added to improve coverage within the school systems. Again, the goal was to improve coverage to the north and the south, where we continuously have holes where, like I said earlier, officers can't communicate back to dispatch or so on. We also wanted to make sure the system was interoperable between departments. There's many times the departments are coming together and combining their response, and they'll be able to talk easily through the system. So again, the system will support the police department, the fire department, the DPW, and if the school chooses, they could also write onto the system too. This system is compatible with our existing gear that we have in our cruisers and fire trucks. There is programs that we're replacing. This system will support all that. Again, the goal was to build a system that will last 20 plus years and provide that improved services. And that's it.
Are there any questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article?
I'll defer to the board or Troy.
So that's a very good question, and we want to make sure everyone understands how we're proposing to finance this capital project. So you've heard earlier a presentation about the town's tax cap, and as the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee and department heads put together a budget this year with a number of priorities, when this one article was discussed, this project, it was very difficult to figure out how we could finance it and meet the tax cap at the same time. So we used the same approach that we used when we financed the fire station 2 years ago, where we're financing this project. The payments are going to be made in arrears, meaning after this article, if it's approved, payments will be made a year later. No tax impact this year, no money will be raised this year. Next year, when we're in our operating budget, there will be a cost. And that's estimated, I think we said 16 cents. To pay that lease agreement. Now, you need to also understand, next year about this time, there'll be other moving parts. There'll be reductions in the operating budget. There'll be increases in the operating budgets. There'll be increased taxable property. Hopefully, our revenues will continue to increase. So the overall impact will hopefully not be a full 16 cents. But there will be, the cost will show up in the 2021 budget.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Comments or amendments to this article? Sir? Is that microphone on? Can you just tap it and see if it's on? Broken mic, if you can move over this one maybe? Thank you. Yeah, and if you could repeat your name again and address.
Brian Hodgkins, 14 Grouse Lane. It's more of a comment. This definitely does have a tax impact, and it's also costing us. I think it's somewhere around $25,000 or $30,000 extra because they're trying to put it in this budget. And sorry, I'm not good at the public speaking thing, but so there actually is a tax impact, and like I said, it's cost us an extra 25 or 30 grand because they're trying to slide it in this budget.
Any other questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article? One question that I have is, my understanding this is replaced for the fire department that's currently dispatched out of Hudson. Is it anticipated that there will be a new employee needed to man that function?
No, this does not change any of the dispatching programs we have in place. This is just replaces the communication system within town that is used by those dispatchers.
Thank you. Last call. Any other questions, comments, or amendments? Hearing none, then, this warrant article will appear as written on the March 10th ballot. Article 8, Library Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be placed in the Library Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund as previously established. Estimated 2020 tax rate impact is 1 cent. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0. It's recommended by the Budget Committee 8-1-0. I now call on Ms. Donna Ferguson, Chairwoman of the Litchfield Library Trustees, to present this article.
Good morning. The fund was established in 2016 for the purpose of accounting for the
Can
annual...
everybody hear her?
Can you hear me?
If you can move the microphone down.
Is that better? Okay, I'll start over. The fund was established in 2016 for the purpose of accounting for the annual cost of unused earned time paid out to employees for resignations and buybacks, as there are no funds available for this purpose in the operating budget. The current liability at the end of 2019 is $17,193. The current balance in the fund is $3,143. The town's auditors have advised the library to maintain at least 50% of the total liability in this expendable trust fund. The addition of $5,000 will raise the balance to $8,143.
Are there any questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article? Hearing none, then, this article will appear on the ballot on March 10th as written.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're getting very close to taking a break, but before we do, I'd like to now call on Chairman Stephen Weber of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to take a few moments and recognize Mr. Brent Lemire. Brent, if you'd come over, please. A couple weeks ago, Brent informed the board that he would not be seeking re-election this March as selectman. And upon the conversations with him, we learned that he has actually served our community for over 40 years. And upon saying that, I was taken back, and I wasn't sure what encompassed these 40 years. So a couple individuals went off into the history banks, and they came back with what Brent has done for this town over the last 40 years. Brent joined the Litchfield Fire Department back in 1977. He was elected fire chief 2 years later in 1979. He served as fire chief for our community for 16 years, and to date is the longest serving fire chief in the history of Litchfield. After he retired in 2001 from the Litchfield Fire Department, he was elected to the Budget Committee. He served as a member of the Budget Committee from 2001 to 2009, and he chaired that committee from 2004 to 2009. In 2011 through 2020, he was part of the Board of Selectmen and chaired that board in 2017 and 2018. It has been an honor to serve next to a man who has given so much of his time to this community. So So on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we'd like to present Brent T. Lemare in recognition of appreciation of over 40 years of service to the town of Litchfield. Thank you, Brent.
I hate to do this, but I was elected chief in '85, Steve. I got on the budget committee in '78, so sorry about that. I just want to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to have served the town in those capacities for all of this time. And I appreciate the support and the cooperation that all of you have given me through the years. You know, President Kennedy once said, you know, the torch is passed to a new generation, and I believe that that is so true. You know, you've got to let the youngins come up and take responsibility and share their fresh ideas. And again, I thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve you, and I'll be around, but in with a little rest and relaxation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent, for everything you've done for this town. I know I've served with you for several years as well, and you are always very active and very pointed in terms of making sure that things worked. I'd now like to take, at this point in time, a brief break, for a bio break as we call it, and we will get back together at 1:15 on the dot.
Because I have If you ever get a chance to decide you want to keep your toe in the water, there's always an opportunity for a deputy moderator. Think about it, because you know what's going on.
Okay.
Not everyone agrees with me. In fact, most people don't agree with me. But we've challenged it out there. Now, I don't think any developer is ever going to challenge it. No, I think it's I don't know. I trust you to do that.
wish they'd turn the heat up. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Great down there. But, well, my wife and I just got sick of it. We decided we were going to go downtown. And wherever we ended up, we ended up. So we basically drove, and about meantime, we said, okay, we don't need the hotel, here's about where we need it. Booked the hotel, and we go from there. So it worked out pretty well. We ended up going to St. Augustine, Venice, Orlando area, that type of stuff. So it was good. Ask everybody to please take their seats. We'll start the meeting up.
Next time when I send the setup memo, I'll say, can you set the building at 68 degrees?
Oh.
Okay. Okay, and I've got it. Article 9, Human Services and Health Agencies. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to support human services and health agencies providing services to the town of Litchfield. If approved, the Health and Human Services Funding Committee will review funding requests and submit recommended funding amounts to the Board of Selectmen for approval. The estimated 2020 tax rate impact is 2 cents. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0-0. It is recommended by the Budget Committee, 8-1-0. I now call upon Selectman Stephen Weber, Chairman, Litchfield Board of Selectmen, to present this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So over the years, we've done this article several different ways. Last year was a little bit different. We had a warrant article to raise and appropriate $25,000, but also to put together a Health and Human Services Committee, which was made up of the welfare officer, the health officer, and one citizen. Last year, the warrant article was approved at $25,000. Based on the money that was requested by agencies and the work that was done by the committee themselves, they've allocated $19,742 in 2019. The remaining balance of $5,258 was encumbered. This year's article is seeking $15,000, and if you look at the money that we encumbered, $5,258, the money's available will be $20,258 for 2020, so it'd be pretty much even balanced, evenly funded over the 2 years. This is the list of the funding requests that have come into the town. Based on these groups, they are looking at $24,952. The committee has got together once so far, and they started looking at the requested funds and how each individual group impacts the town. You know, do they impact from the point of how many services are given? They look at it, are they for-profit, not-for-profit, and so forth. And as of right now, the committee is looking at $18,140 to, if the warrant article is passed, to give out to these agencies. This is not the final numbers that they want to do. They still have Harbor Homes and Anne Marie they still have to go back and look at. So we will not make a final decision until they come back with everything. Are there any questions?
Questions, comments, or amendments from the voters on warrant article number 9? Hearing none then, this warrant article will appear as written on the March 10th ballot. Warrant Article 10, General Assistance Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a General Assistance Expendable Trust Fund pursuant to RSA 31:19A for the purpose of providing financial assistance to individuals in need pursuant to RSA 165:1 and to raise and appropriate $10,000 for said fund. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. The estimated 2020 tax rate impact is 1 cent. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. It is recommended by the Budget Committee 810. I now call upon Selectman Kurt Schaefer, Vice Chairman of the Litchfield Board of Selectmen, to present this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Here we go. This expendable trust fund is recommended by the Budget Committee, and the fund will allow us to provide budget stability. The current practice taxes for the what are we trying to say here? It actually allows us to prepare for the unknown. The annual expenses that we do expend right now are from $2,000 to $10,000 a year. This fund will also allow us to roll or encumber unspent funds available in future years. RSA 165:1 requires assistance. It requires us to provide assistance for people that need it, whether it be for rent, food, electric, fuel, emergency shelter, or medical needs. Are there any questions?
Questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article? Hearing none then, oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Nicole Forty, 85 Page Road. I know that Carrie had highlighted this in the overview, but just to make it clear to everyone that because of the vote of the Budget Committee, it wasn't unanimous, but majority to take out the entire funding for what's called vendor payments, which is this general assistance, that if this article were to fail, we would not have any funding for that purpose, and yet RSA 165:1 does require us to respond to requests from the citizens, and there are a lot of people in Litchfield that need this assistance. The need is definitely there. I think we can all recognize that. So this one is just really, really important for people to consider that if this were to fail, we could be in a tough situation to have to fund something where there are no funds for. So please, I just encourage people to think about that, to know that there are needs in the community that we're required to meet by law, and the establishment of this trust fund would allow us to do that in a responsible way to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, or amendments from the voters for warrant article 10? Hearing none then, this warrant article will appear as written on the March 10th ballot. Warrant Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to paint the exterior of the Old Town Hall. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. The estimated 2020 tax rate impact is $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0. It is recommended by the Budget Committee 6-3-0. And I call upon Selectman F. Robert Leary, Litchfield Board of Selectmen, to present this article.
Hey, good morning. Couple items about this building that we're trying to preserve is that it is the original town meeting house since 1736. It was constructed in two phases, 1700s and 1800s. We actually still have the timbers, the front door, and the steps from the original 1736 meeting house. It's held the town meetings for over 120 years. The main part of the building was built in 1851. It has withstood the 1936 flood and the 1938 hurricane. Now, it used to be across the street on 3A. It was moved back to help save it. Currently, it's the home of the Litchfield Historical Society Museum, which is maintained at no cost to the town. Even the electrical bill is paid for by the Historical Society. It is leased from the town at $1 per year, and the Historical Society is financially self-sufficient. They get all their money through fundraisers and donations. It's also where we host the Memorial Day ceremony ever since I can remember, and I've lived in the town for a long time. A couple of issues. We had originally talked about taking this out of the budget, and I'm a big proponent of if you have money, spend it versus taxing, so we decided to do it this way. We thought it was better, okay? On the building itself, you can follow up there, the front and the north sides, which is the side that faces the church and the side that faces the river, get a lot of winds coming down off that river. If anyone lives along the river there, you know what that north wind does. It cuts right through you, and it does the same for buildings. The clapboards, window frames, shutters, they're all in need of some help. Mostly the building had been maintained by volunteers, prisoners, and I believe it was painted by a contractor one time, although I didn't think it was a very good job. The building also contains lead paint, so you have to be really careful with the EPA regs. It's a very tricky situation, okay? There's certain things you can and can't do. You can't power wash the building because it throws paint chips everywhere, and it also will dilute some of the older paint and go down into the ground. Can't use power sanders, power scrapers, etc. What we propose to do is, as far as the building goes, is to prepare it properly, which will be to clean it by hand. It'll be scraped by hand, primed, and 2 coats of a finished paint. Replace whatever damaged clapboards and other wood we can do that needs to be done, but it's got to be approved because we don't want somebody just going in and tearing off the old boards. They're very important to the Historical Society. Normally, I tell people paint jobs, you check them after 5 years. I truly believe that this could last 8 to 10 years because it's a lighter color, so it doesn't absorb the sun as much. And if it's done properly, there's no reason why it shouldn't get close to that, okay? And then maybe after that, you just do one side per year. And it's going to be publicly bid with strict specifications. And I've told Troy that I will personally oversee it. And my area of expertise in this is that I am the National Historical Society's painter and have been for almost 30 years. They have some pictures up there that they can show you of the building in its dire shape that it's in. It just really hadn't been maintained well over the years. People try, and you give them credit for trying, but it's just, it needs to be done the right way to preserve it. This is also part of the Old Town Center. Now, back in the day, 1700s, early 1800s, before the railroad, commerce used to go up and down the river, and Litchfield was a hub. You have the Town Tavern, which is next door, but people used to come to Litchfield versus going to Merrimack. And it was Litchfield was a pretty good town. It was an affluent town back then. We don't have a lot of historical buildings or areas in town. This one has special meaning for the town itself and the historical preservation, and there's many more. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to
Are there
someone.
questions to Selectman Leary on this warrant article?
Okay. And I'm sorry for not sitting with my colleagues fresh out of surgery.
Hearing none, though, I do have a motion to amend. The motion is from Jennifer Bork, 1 Westview Drive. The new amendment would read as follows: to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to paint the exterior of the Old Town Hall. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. The estimated 2020 tax rate impact would be, again, $0. I find this a valid motion. Is there a second to this motion? Could you
Mr. Cutter.
state Andrew Cutter has seconded the motion? Jennifer, this is your motion, so I give you the first chance to speak to it.
Thank you very much. So this might seem like a kind of small amount to people, but I just wanted to share my thoughts. So Mr. Brown shared with the Budget Committee that he received a quote from a very reputable contractor that was $20,000, and that he chose to add kind of a cushion of an additional $5,000. I feel like we should go with the quote of $20,000 and try and save as much money as possible.
Are there questions, comments, or any discussion on the amendment? Unfortunately, sir, that microphone doesn't seem to work, so yes.
You wanna
Mr.
go
Leary,
first?
can you?
I'm just going to address it. Go ahead. Hi, Robert Leary, 172 Charles Bancroft. I'm also on the Selectmen and Budget Committee. The $5,000 that brought the cost up to $25,000 is for the wood and the rot repair to the windows, repair to the shutters, clapboards, trim boards. It's in addition to the $20,000. It doesn't mean the money has to be used. It's just there if we need it.
Further comments, questions on this amendment? Sir?
Hi, William Barrett, 53 Pilgrim Drive. I wanted to get this in before you deferred if there were questions for Selectman. I don't have a question for him, but my question was, and if this is...
Please just state your question, and we'll try and work out the answer.
It's interrupting the voting thing, but I just wanted to hear from the Budget Committee. They're showing 6-3 in favor, but what's the opinion of the 3 not in favor? What's the...
Ms. Douglas, I don't know, do you have someone who
And
you want
other
to?
general-
Are there anybody on the Budget Committee who wishes to speak towards the question? Go ahead.
I voted against because of the variance of the 20 and 25,000.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. Are there other questions?
No. Carrie Douglas, 9 Pheasant Street. I'm speaking to the proposed amendment. I would actually, I love you, Jen, and I love to save money, but in my experience, especially seeing the pictures there, we are likely to run into rotted plywood, subsurface, sills. We don't know. And the quote for the painting is for what we do know. And so if we have to start replacing sheathing or clapboards, we need a contingency fund. And a $5,000 contingency fund for this may seem like a high proportion, but you start getting that sheathing and whatever clapboard we need to match, it seems to me to be prudent to have the money available for those expenses.
Further comments or questions on this proposed amendment? Hearing none then, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the amendment to change the appropriated sum to $20,000, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The noes have it. The amendment fails. Are there further questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article? Hearing none then, the warrant article will appear as written for the sum of $25,000 on the March 10th ballot. Article 12, plow truck purchase. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $100,000 to purchase a plow truck with equipment for the highway department. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. The estimated 2020 tax rate impact is $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0. It is recommended by the Budget Committee 7-2-0. And I now call upon Selectman Kurt Schaefer, Vice Chairman of the Litchfield Board of Selectmen, to present this warrant.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This article is asking us to purchase a new plow truck that's going to be more reliable. In essence, we're replacing a 2000 International plow truck, which is 20 years old and has 95,000 miles on it. It isn't reliable because of its age and condition and its physical capabilities, and it won't pass state inspection anymore. I guess the mounts that hold the cab to the frame are rotting. It's going to be an extreme expense to fix this truck, and there's no trade-in or public sale value. Our new truck at estimated cost is going to be $100,000. It's $60,000 for the truck chassis with the dump body and $40,000 for the plow, the wing plow, and the sander. And this is a cash purchase. There will be no tax impact. This is a picture of our 2000 truck that we are trying to replace. As you can tell, it's got some age to it. What we're looking to get is a medium heavy-duty truck, for example, within an F650 range, which is a moderately sized dump truck. It's going to need to have four-wheel drive, but it's not going to require a CDL because it's going to be under 26,000 GVW. What it'll have is a 10-foot plow and a 9-foot wing on it. The total of 15-foot plowing width, and it's excellent for all our small streets and cul-de-sacs. This is an example of what we would like to purchase. This is, in case people are wondering, this is the inventory that we have right now of our plow vehicles. And as you can see, everything's starting to get older, and this will help us move forward and become a more modern department. We have an International plow truck that's 20 years old, which is the one that we're trying to replace, with 93,000 miles on it. We have a 2001 International plow truck that's 19 years old with 143,000 miles on it. We have a 2003 F350, 17 years old with 70,000 miles on it. We have a 2009 International plow truck that's 11 with 22,000 miles on it. And then we have a couple pieces of equipment. We have a 2009 Cat loader that has 2,500 hours, which is still very young for the amount of hours we have on it. It's still a very young machine, even though it's 11 years old. And we also have a 2010 Caterpillar backhoe that's 10 years old. And again, at 2,600 hours, it's in great shape in terms of its age. We also have a 2012 F450 one-ton dump truck that's 36,000 miles. And we have a 2015 F350 pickup that is 68,000 miles. And 2 years ago, we bought a Freightliner, which is a 2018 model. It's 2 years old and has 4,400 miles on it. Any questions?
Are there questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant Article 12 for the purchase of a plow truck? Hearing no comments or amendments, this warrant article will appear as written on the March 10th ballot.
Thank you.
Article 13, Building System Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed into the Building System Expendable Trust Fund as previously established. The sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. The estimated 2020 tax rate impact is $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 9-0-0. I now call on Selectman Kevin Lynch. The reason I'm screwed up is because I had Mr. Leary here to speak to it, so it was my fault on putting this together. I now call upon Selectman Kevin Lynch of the Litchfield Board of Selectmen to present this article.
Good afternoon. Kevin Lynch, my real name. I'm speaking to this, what this trust fund is about. Okay, expendable trust fund. It's about all our buildings that we have and to maintain it. The roofing needs to be done. We run into something else.
Can everybody hear Mr. Lynch? Can you speak, move the microphone a little closer, Kevin?
I'm right on it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, what this is an expendable fund that we keep a balance for in case the heating systems, the roads, or we get a failure in the septic system, or anything in all our town buildings, the highway department, the dog pound, stuff like that. It's just to maintain it, okay? And we keep it there each year. This started back in the day, 2013. Am I going to have to hit something else here? No, I'm doing good. As you can see up there, it's all it is. It's like you in your own home. If something fails, you got to save some money, and this is what it's all about. We got 6 heating systems in the old town hall. I mean, in the town hall and the police. They're due to go. I know we replaced at least 3 condensers, about $4,000 a piece. But I do know some of the heating systems in there have to, they need to be updated. They're 23 years old or 20-some-odd years old. It's time for them to go, no different than a roof. So this is what this is all about, okay?
Are there any questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article? Hearing none, then, this warrant article will appear on the March 10th ballot as written. My apologies, Kevin, for missing your name. Article 14, Technology and Communication Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be placed into the Technology and Communication Expendable Trust Fund as previously established. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. The estimated 2020 tax rate impact is $0. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee, 9-0-0. I now call upon Selectman Stephen Weber, Chairman, Litchfield Board of Selectmen, to present this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Presently, we have a balance of $28,500. The intent of this fund is to take care of our aging infrastructure. So as arrays go down, handheld devices for our public services go down, we can use a fund to do it. Not knowing what's going to happen to Article 7 and with the aging infrastructure, we are recommending that this balance goes to $50,000, just in case Article 7 is defeated, because we have to be able to keep our information technology systems up and running. So it's for the purchase and repair of technology and communication equipment, hardware and software, and minor planned upgrades in emergency replacement of portable radios, radio systems, software, phones, and et cetera. Are there any questions?
Questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article? Hearing none, then, this warrant article will appear as written on the March 10th ballot. Article 15, non-binding vote, community center design. Are you in favor of the Recreation Commission investigating the need to construct a community center, investigating the cost of such center, and developing drawings and designs of such a center? This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0-0. This is presented by, I now call on Mr. Andrew Collins, Chairman of the Litchfield Recreation Department. Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Andy Collins, Nesson Cake Drive, Chair of the Recreation Commission. So what we're trying to do here is just get some feedback. The groups that we deal with on a regular basis have expressed the need for an additional facility. And this would basically just give us the nod saying, yeah, why don't we look into this? No work is going to be contracted. There's no cost anticipated with this other than, you know, if we run off copies, you know, regular office supplies type things. Currently, Talent Hall is currently our only town-controlled recreation facility. We just replaced the heating system with that had given us some issues for years. And there's a lot of things in the building that are going to be needed to be replaced in the near future. It's an older building. With a yes vote, what it will do is just give us the nod, again, like I said, to investigate this and come up with costs for what we would need for engineering designs, et cetera, which would then be proposed as a warrant article next year to be voted on, and then if it proceeds past that, we would go for bidding for the facility. So this is, again, just to let us know, is this something that is worth our time to investigate?
Are there questions, comments, or amendments to this warrant article?
Nicole 40, 85 Page Road. I just have a question about how this is or isn't related to the current capital planning committee, and would this have to go before the committee in order to get approved, or would this be kind of in a separate process? Because I think I was under the impression that the capital planning committee, part of that was to have sort of a master plan about big capital infrastructure changes. So this, to me, would be setting up a process. Is the intention for that to be separate from the committee, or that would be part of that plan?
Basically, it would be for us to investigate it, and then if probably presented as part of the plan. We have no information on anything to present at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if a majority of the town says we don't need it, we don't want to really spend the time and effort to investigate it.
Gotcha, okay. Just one more question.
Follow up?
Yeah. Could you give some examples of what would be like approved uses of the community center? I know right now with Talent Hall, it's very limited to recreation for a variety of reasons. Would a community center maybe be more multi-purpose in your estimation?
That would be something we'd have to look into. Obviously, it's something we would like to have more uses for the citizens, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or amendments to this article? I have one, Mr. Collins, and that is that your article states that you will be developing drawings and designs of such a center, but there's no appropriation to cover that.
It would just be basically sketches and things from other facilities that we get. It wouldn't be anything that we would contract to get drawn.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, or amendments? Hearing none, then, this article will appear as written on the March 10th ballot.
Thank you.
Article 16, by petition. Per RSA 72:39A and RSA 72:27A, we, the people of Litchfield, New Hampshire, would like to modify the elderly exemptions to the following. The elderly exemption based on assessed value of their home to qualified property owners 65 years of age and up to 75 shall be $85,000, and from 75 years of age to 80 shall be $140,000. Age 80 and up shall be $190,000, and the income of a single person to $45,000 and a married couple to $55,000. To qualify, the person must have been a New Hampshire resident for at least 3 consecutive years, own the real estate individually or jointly, or if the real estate is owned by such person's spouse, they must have been married to each other for at least 5 consecutive years. In addition, the single taxpayer must not have a net income of more than $45,500, or if married, a combined net income of $55,000, and own net assets not in excess of $300,000, excluding the value of the person's residence, or if married, combined assets shall not be in excess of $300,000. The combined net asset amount for a married person shall apply to a surviving spouse until the sale or transfer of the property by the surviving spouse or until remarriage of the surviving spouse. Note, assuming the same number of eligible recipients and property valuation, this will cost an additional $50,729 with an estimated 2020 tax rate impact of 6 cents. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500. This is recommended by the Budget Committee 801. And I now call upon Mr. Jack Shiner to present his petition warrant article. Yep.
My name is Jack Shiner, 10 Whittemore Square.
Can you step a little bit closer?
Okay. The present elderly exemption was approved over 15 years ago. And since that time, the cost of living has substantially increased. And due to that increases, I submitted this new elderly exemptions, which I am proud to say that the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee approved.
You set? Okay, are there any further comments or questions or amendments to this warrant article? Hearing none then, this petition warrant article will appear as written and submitted on the March 10th ballot. And last but not least, Article 17 by petition, to see if the town will vote to increase the Veterans Tax Credit and the All Veterans Tax Credit from $300 to $750 per year. Note, assuming the same number of eligible recipients, this will cost an additional $174,498 and an estimated 2020 tax rate impact of 19 cents. This is not recommended by the Board of Selectmen by a vote of 5-0-0. It is not recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 4-4-1. I call upon Mr. Bobby Jack to present his petition warrant article, and I will recognize him, but he has submitted to me a request for an amendment. Is that correct, Mr. Jack?
Yes, sir. Robert Jacques, Chief Master Sergeant, United States Air Force, retired. We'd like to amend for the veteran from Litchfield from $750 to $500. We realize that would be a great impact on the community, so we would like to go ahead and at this time go ahead and ask to go ahead and look for only a $200 increase.
Okay, so there is a motion to amend. Second. And we have a second by Andrew Cutter. And Mr. Jacques, I will give you the floor to speak to your amendment.
We felt that we had a meeting with the Litchfield veterans. We just started this organization. We feel that we could do a lot for the community. I've been in the town for over 25 years, and we looked at the different towns that encompasses Litchfield and saw that there's quite a few that give an exemption up to $750. So, you know, being that said, we kind of put that together, and then when we looked at what it would impact on the town and been here, we understand about the tax increases that we see year to year, and we felt that, you know, we're glad that we served our communities and served our country, and we want to go ahead and say that we love Litchfield, and we'd like to go ahead and just see if the town could go ahead and just look at an increase of $200, and we'd look for the future and see what we can do as it make an impact on the community as well, and see how we can go ahead and stepping forward.
Okay. The amendment in front of us will read as follows: to see if the town will vote to increase the Veterans Tax Credit and the All Veterans Tax Credit from $300 to $500 per year. Are there any questions, comments on this amended article?
Hi, William Barrett, 53 Pilgrim Drive. Will this change? William Barrett, 53 Pilgrim Drive. Will this adjustment affect the recommendations of the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee? And if they do, will we hear those outcomes today, or?
So what ends up happening is the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee normally get together after deliberative session, and they consider changes to warrant articles, and they are able at that point to revote their recommendations. That would then be put onto the ballot. So you would see that come the ballot time.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, or discussion on the amended article?
Thank you for this time. Appreciate it.
I know that. Okay. Hearing no further comments, questions on the amendment, I now ask for a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of amending warrant article 17 from $750 to $500, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. A motion to amend passes. Are there any further motions, questions, or comments on now the amended petition warrant Article 17? Hearing none, the petition warrant Article 17 will appear on the ballot for March 10th as you have amended. We've now completed all of our warrant articles for today's deliberative sessions. Please remember that voting on these articles will occur at March 10th, 2020, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. here at Campbell High School Auditorium. And also, as a side note, New Hampshire primary will occur on February 11th, 2020, 7 to 7, as also at the Campbell High School Gymnasium. Is there any other business to come before this meeting? Please remember, before you go, to turn in your ballot sheets. Those ballot sheets are the pink sheets that you were given when you came in, to either up here at the stage or to the ballot clerks on your way out. Hearing no further requests for any other business, at this time I will accept a motion to adjourn. We have a motion made by Selectman Weber. Who seconded the motion? Selectman Schaefer has seconded the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now officially adjourned. Thank you for coming today. And next week on Saturday is the school deliberative. Hopefully we'll see you there.